Good evening, Greg.
Hey there, Mike. How are you? I was muted.
Good. Hey, Frank,
Yes, sir.
before you go, I had a random thought to try to save time for you, because I know sending all these individual invites to the council members is always a pain for you. What if you just sent one number, and then as the administrator or host, when it starts, you just promote the council members right there? You only have to send one invite out. Might be an idea to think about.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the benefits of the webinars. In that
You're recording this right now, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
But it's an idea.
We'll cut it out. Okay.
Hey, Mark. Long time no see.
Hey, Mike, how are you? Good to see everybody again.
Good.
What happened? How long you staying at the lake, Mike?
Just a couple days.
Did you get any snow?
Yeah, it's just been cold here.
Yeah.
And maybe an inch or two, but when then it starts blowing and drifts in. It's very windy up here.
So we got more down here than you did up there.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, we went snowmobiling yesterday. Didn't even get them off the trailer a couple of weeks ago up there, so.
There's a lot of fishy houses out on our lake. Man, I've never seen so many fish houses. And this is a tough lake to fish, so who knows? They may be doing other things in those fish houses than fishing.
Yeah, well, you know why ice fishing was created, don't you?
It has nothing to do with fish, does it?
Yeah, it has everything to do with beer.
Greg's going, nothing wrong with that.
You know, I've never quite figured it. You go spend $60,000 on a boat and go try to find fish, or you go put $1,000 clam up on top of a hole and they come to you.
You guys are making me laugh today. Uh,
Hey, Gary,
how's it going?
good.
I like the vaulted cabin look there, bud. That looks nice.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's our cabin. It's got,
I was hoping you were going to tell me that was a backdrop you picked.
no, that's it's an authentic log cabin.
I like it.
Bugs with the
Mike, that's not a cabin. I own a cabin. That's not a cabin. It's a house.
I made this little thing last night in the shop. It's intended to be a spot to put my phone and my earbuds so that I don't lose them. I just had more fun making the thing than anything else. Then I don't lose my phone. See, it's got a home.
Is all of our staff here? Awesome. The chambers is filling up. It's super exciting.
Cool.
Oh, awesome. There's a great turnout for the swearing in, so I'm just gonna let people get in.
Yeah, we need to get back to in person, so I stop eating dinner in 5 minutes.
I think, hey, at least you got dinner. I brought almonds.
I just had to brush my teeth to get the almonds out of my teeth.
All right, perfect. And it looks like all of our staff is here. All right. Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, January 25th at 7:02 p.m. and welcome to the Maple Plains City Council meeting. I call the meeting to order. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, I'm looking for a motion to adopt tonight's agenda with one change. I would like to move the fire chief's administrative report to letter A, and then the rest will follow. Any other changes or additions? Okay, looking for a motion.
I move with that change.
Moved by Cahill,
I'll second.
second by DeLong. All in favor of approving the agenda with one change by a show of hands? I see 5 hands. Opposed by a show of hands? Okay, motion carries 5-0. First item of business this evening is visitors to be heard. And tonight we are grateful to have Hennepin County Commissioner Kevin Anderson with us. Commissioner, you have 3 minutes to address the floor. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everyone. I'm excited. I was sworn in earlier this month as County Commissioner for District 7, which covers the western portion of Hennepin County. And you know, I've started out. We got our committee assignments. I'm chairing the Public Works Committee, and really looking forward to finding ways to partner with cities in my district to make sure that we're working together to meet our infrastructure projects. Something that I would really like to see is expanding out some access to broadband. But I know I want to be here to work alongside you to make sure that you're able to meet your city's goals. So I'm not going to take up all of your time, but I would welcome any questions you may have, and yeah, look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and we as well look forward to working with you, and I appreciate your participation in the Northwest Hennepin League, and look forward to continuing building those relationships between the county and the city.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I see some questions or just waves. Nice to see everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item of business is the oath of office, and the chambers are filled this evening. We'll begin. I will swear in the fire chief, and then he will swear in his assistant chiefs, followed by a 10-minute recess so the family can take pictures. So I invite Chief Ray McCoy forward. Today we are here to swear in a swearing ceremony for our firefighters, and in particular our fire chiefs. It's one of the world's most honored but dangerous occupations. When there is an emergency in the community, our firefighters are the ones who are first on the scene, no matter what hour of the day it is, or tornado, or hazardous material incidents, rescue operations, explosions, medical emergencies, and many other critical incidents. One thing about our firefighters and our fire chiefs is you all run towards danger when we run away from it. Firefighters are civil servants as sworn officers, following standard policies and procedures of the fire service and standard operating procedures of the department. They are there to prevent human suffering and death and to stabilize the incident and prevent damages and loss of property. It is a great honor to have this opportunity to swear in Maple Plain Fire Department Chief Ray McCoy. Chief, will you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Ray McCoy, do solemnly swear.
I, Ray McCoy, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
And the state of Minnesota against all enemies,
and the state of Minnesota against all enemies,
both foreign and domestic.
both foreign and domestic.
And I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as firefighter of the Maple Plain Fire Department.
I'll faithfully discharge my duties as the chief of the Maple Plain Fire Department
Under the appointment of the department,
under the appointment of the department,
according to the laws of Minnesota,
according to the laws of Minnesota,
County of Hennepin,
County of Hennepin,
and citizens we serve,
and the citizens we serve,
to the best of my skills
best of my skills
and abilities.
and abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite forward Ray's family and who will be doing the pinning. And you can all come forward. So Chief McCoy has his wife, Bobby, and his son, firefighter McCoy, and firefighter McCoy with him tonight for the pinning ceremony. They're coming back to the flag. At this time, I will be turning the floor over to firefighter Chief Ray McCoy to swear in his assistant chiefs.
Okay, I'd like to invite up Deputy Chief Corey Schultz. Thank you for the introduction to the oath, Mayor. And, it is definitely my honor, Corey, to swear you in as our Deputy Chief. So just raise your right hand. I, Corey Schultz, do solemnly swear.
I, Corey Schultz, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America
to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America
and the state of Minnesota against all enemies,
and the state of Minnesota against all enemies,
both foreign and domestic.
both foreign and domestic.
I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as a firefighter of the Maple Plain Fire Department
I will faithfully discharge my duties as a member of the Maple Plain Fire Department
under the appointment and of the department according to the laws of Minnesota,
of the Department of the laws of the state of Minnesota,
County of Hennepin,
County of Hennepin,
cities that we serve,
cities that we serve,
to the best of my skills and abilities,
to the best of my skills and abilities.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite up Operations Chief Brad Kelsey. Again, Brad, it is definitely my privilege to swear you in as our operations chief. I remember both Corey and you as little kids running around the fire station, as you both had family there. And it is with great honor that I have this privilege to swear you in. So raise your right hand. I, Brad Kelsey.
I, Brad Kelsey,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America
do solemnly swear to defend the Constitution of the United States of America
and the state of Minnesota
and the state of Minnesota
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
both foreign and domestic.
against foreign and domestic.
I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as a firefighter
I will faithfully discharge my duties as a firefighter
of the Plain Fire Department
of the Lake Plain Fire Department
under the appointment of the department according to the laws of Minnesota,
under the requirements of the laws of the state of Minnesota,
County of Hennepin,
County of Hennepin,
and the cities that we serve
and cities we serve
to the best of my skills and abilities.
to the best of my skills and abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Now invite Brad's family forward to unpin and pin his new badge.
Hold on, hold on. All right. Thank you.
The time is 7:12 and we will recess until 7:25 to allow the family to take pictures. Thank you.
I always thought they were ours. That or water.
All right, it is 7:25 and I am calling the meeting back to order. Frank, do we need a motion to come back? We're good, right?
I think you're good. Go for it.
All right, moving on. First item of business, our next item of business, excuse me, is number 7, the consent agenda. I would like to note one change on letter A. It should be the approval of the 8/27/20 workshop meeting minutes. With that change, if there are no other changes, I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I've
Councilmember-
got a change on E. The date on that document states 2022 at the top.
Staff, did you get that?
Getting ahead of ourselves now.
Okay, yeah, let's not skip 21 altogether.
We don't have a flex capacitor.
All right. Okay, so with those two corrections, any other corrections? Okay, with that then, with those two corrections on letter A and letter E, looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by DeLong,
Second.
second by Cahill. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda with the two changes as noted by a show of hands? All right, I see 5 hands. Opposed, show of hands. Okay, consent agenda is approved 5-0. Next item of business is the public hearing, and I will turn that over to our city planner.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. This item that is coming before you tonight is a request that's being made to allow a conditional use permit and site plan review for mini self-storage on the property located at 5305 Pioneer Creek Drive. So the subject property is currently being used for mini self-storage on a portion of the project, and historically has had an array of other uses that have been conducted within one of the existing buildings on the property, that building that's located the furthest east. The property recently sold, and the new owners have taken over the property, and they operate mini self-storage as their primary function and primary business. And they approached the city about the possibility of converting that easterly building into additional climate-controlled indoor mini self-storage. And so the city took a look at the property, took a look at the historic use of the property, trying to determine if there was any conditional uses previously granted on the property that provided for or allowed mini self-storage, which is a conditional use within the I industrial district. That research turned up no existing conditional use permits granted specifically for the overall property to have mini self-storage. And this particular request to convert that space essentially triggered the need for the city to go through site plan review, as well as potentially clean up what has historically been done on the property to allow the conditional use permit for mini self-storage. The property itself is zoned industrial by the city currently, and it's guided by the city's comprehensive plan as industrial. The overall site is approximately 2.94 acres. As I noted, the use of mini self-storage is a conditional use on this particular property, and there has been no previous conditional use granted specifically for that use. There's currently 5 other buildings that are on the property outside of the subject building that we're talking about tonight that are currently used for mini self-storage, all with exterior access to those buildings, none of which are climate controlled. The building that we're talking about tonight, that easterly building, is currently not used for mini self-storage and historically has been used for other uses, which include manufacturing, storage, certain types of heavy industrial, as well as most recently automobile and boat repair. There is an existing conditional use that is on the property that is specifically been granted for the use of this building for automobile and boat repair, and that conditional use permit exists at this time. It should be noted that the building itself is now vacant and is not currently being used. So for the city to consider the conversion of this space from its current use as automobile repair or just overall industrial warehouse storage into climate controlled indoor storage units, the city would need to consider granting a conditional use permit. As I noted before, the rest of the site is also used for mini self-storage, and in order to, because we're considering the granting of conditional use permit on this property, staff thinks it makes sense that we would consider a conditional use permit across the whole property to essentially clean up the use of the property and place conditions on the use of the property appropriate for mini self-storage. And so in considering this particular conditional use for the conversion of the space from the current use as office or as warehouse industrial to climate controlled indoor storage, the city could also consider granting then the conditional use permit across the site to allow what really has been happening on the site as mini indoor storage. A couple of things related to the proposed use. The applicant is proposing to convert the space, really all interior renovations, no exterior renovations, to 30 individual secured indoor storage units. They'd be developed within the existing shell of the building, and they would have controlled access, secured access coming in from the outside to access the interior of this building and those individual units. The change would bring this building into essentially a consistent use with the way that the rest of the site is used, in that it's all mini self-storage. It would also eliminate some of the historic problems that the city's had on this property relating to outdoor storage, the intensity of the use, some of the kind of everyday traffic, and then parking, and then people coming in and out of the building on a regular basis. And so with that change in use, it's thought that this could reduce the intensity of the use of this site, as well as bringing the whole site into one consistent use rather than having this separate use on just one of the buildings within the site. City does have criteria for granting or considering a conditional use permit relating to mini self-storage facilities. Those criteria are spelled out in the ordinance. I won't go through all of those, but it is believed that the conversion of this space to mini self-storage, as well as the remainder of the site would be in compliance with all applicable criteria, with one exception: the existing buildings. The other 5 buildings that are on the site don't appear to be located 25 feet from each other. They're closer to 20, or a little bit closer than 25 to each other. But all other applicable criteria that the city lists in its ordinance for granting conditional use permits for mini self-storage have been met. In addition to those criteria, the city has criteria relating to conditional use permits, and the city must make findings that those criteria have been met, or that the applicant in the proposed use of the property has adequately mitigated any of the issues that would arise from the use of the property for this potential conditional use, in this case, the mini self-storage. Couple of thoughts or notes that the city council should consider when considering this particular request. By converting this building, all of the buildings on the subject property be used for self-storage. There'd be a consistent use across the property. The criteria for granting the mini self-storage appear to be met, with the one exception I noted. The city has discussed that the remainder of this the remainder of the property, and whether or not they have any other plans on the property, noting that there is currently and historically has been an outdoor storage area on the east side of the property. They noted that they would ultimately like to convert that outdoor storage into additional enclosed mini storage buildings. And they had actually anticipated that that request would come through at the same time as the request we're considering tonight, just due to the kind of backlog in professional services right now. They weren't able to put all of that information together for this application. And because that particular building that we're talking about tonight has been vacant for a lengthy period, they'd really like to begin the conversion of that space to get that generating revenue. And they anticipate coming forward in the very near future with an additional application to consider conversion of the remainder of the space, that outdoor storage area, into 2 new additional buildings that would be used for mini self-storage. The other thing that we noted is the city has had historic issues relating to security on this site, as well as other mini self-storage facilities in the city. And West Hennepin Public Safety has had conversations with the applicant, as well as with myself and staff, relating to security on this particular site. A couple of things have come out of those conversations. One is that the applicant has provided the city with a plan showing the proposed upgrade to the security camera system that would be installed as a part of the renovation of the subject building. It would be installed on this site. All the cameras would be either replaced or new cameras would be located. This is a much higher resolution camera system that would be motion activated and provide better security cameras around the site perimeter. The other piece of security on this site is the applicant would be upgrading all lighting on all buildings on this site as a condition of the approval of this request, to be just better lighting and also compliant lighting on the buildings, such that that would also help or potentially help with security. The other aspect of security that was discussed with West Hennepin and the applicant is, long-term, the city really should require, and this applicant should install a perimeter security fence, such that there would be a gated security or gated access only into the site, which West Hennepin Public Safety, as well as the applicant, believe would cut down on potential security issues. The applicant is asking the city to consider pushing that the condition of approval of that item to the future new construction of the new buildings. Just from a funding standpoint and being able to put that all together, they'd like the ability to combine it with a larger new construction project rather than have to install it at this time. But they are willing to install it in the future. And we have included a condition in the resolution which suggests that any change to the existing site configuration or increase to the size of the existing buildings would trigger the need for a perimeter site fence to be installed by the applicant. And then the last piece that I would note is there is an existing conditional use permit that exists on the property allowing automobile and truck repair within the subject building. It is recommended that the city revoke that existing conditional use permit as a part of this approval. And the applicant has agreed to the revocation of that CUP as long as this particular CUP is approved. So we have included a revocation resolution with in the request tonight that would be considered by the city council following the consideration of the CUP for this site. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions on it. I will note the Planning Commission reviewed it, held a public hearing. There were no concerns expressed at the time of the public hearing. However, there was one public comment that was provided in writing to the city this past week that is from the neighboring property to the east. And I think the council has all been given a copy of that concern. Essentially, the residents are asking for verification that the parking ordinance has been changed. I'll comment on that in 1 second. They've also asked that in the future, if a fence was put up, it would not be chain link fence, or it would at least take into consideration the location of that fence along the eastern property line, which is adjacent to their rental property. They've noted that they would love the city to consider something that doesn't look like a prison type fence or something. I'm trying to paraphrase exactly what their words said without seeing it right in front of me, because it's hiding behind another document. So that was the comment that was made to the city, but outside of that, no comments at the actual public hearing that the Planning Commission held. At the Planning Commission meeting, they did discuss a lot of the project. They ultimately included another condition, just clarifying that the future expansion of any of the buildings or the site itself would be subject to an installation of a fence. And they discussed the security cameras, they discussed the lighting, they discussed the outdoor storage, but ultimately recommended approval to the city council of the request for the site plan review and conditional use permit for the proposed conversion of this space from industrial warehouse into climate controlled mini self-storage. With that, I'd be happy to answer any of the questions. I do have all of the graphics that I can put up on the screen if there's particular questions or specifics relating to any of those. One note on the parking, there was a question on the parking on Manchester Drive. As you'll recall, the city council in January of 2020 considered an ordinance amendment which added Baker Park Road or CSA 29 to the city's specific list of streets where no parking is permitted. At that time, we also contemplated adding Manchester Drive from essentially what would be the western property line. The eastern property line of this particular property all the way to Bud Avenue. The council removed that provision following discussion at the time that ordinance was considered. So that particular provision did not get adopted by the city council. There was a little bit of just confusion around that, in that the actual ordinance then that was considered that night did get signed, but since has been replaced, and the corrected ordinance striking out the Manchester parking provision has been signed and recorded, and that is the corrected ordinance. Essentially, we said it was a Scrivener's error because the council was clear that was not part of the approved ordinance amendment. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Councilmember DeLong.
Mark, just out of curiosity, when it comes down time to have that fence put in, how much control or does the city have on what that fence needs to look like?
I think the city has full control, Councilmember DeLong. I think we can stipulate that. I think what we say is that where it says the city will require the entire site perimeter to be secured with an approved security fence, meaning we'd have essentially the latitude to approve it and the type of fencing and where it's located.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff? Okay, with that then, I am looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilmember Cahill, second by Councilmember Fay. The public hearing is open to consider a request by KO Storage at 5305 Pioneer Creek Drive, that the city would approve a conditional use permit to allow a mini self-storage on the subject property. The public hearing is open. Is there anyone to speak? Anyone to speak? Anyone to speak? Looking for a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember DeLuca,
Second.
second by Councilmember DeLong. The public hearing has been closed. All right, so with that then, Mark, so the first thing we'd need to do is revoke the first conditional use permit. Is that correct? The proper order?
I did it in the opposite, noting that the applicant, is okay with the revocation based on the approval of the conditional use. So.
Got it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, then I'm looking for a motion to approve resolution number 21-0125-01.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cahill,
Second.
second by Councilmember Fay. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving resolution number 21-0125-01 by a show of hands?
Do we need a roll call?
Oh, yeah, it's a resolution vote. We do. Thank you, Councilmember Cahill. Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Mayor Moskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Fay,
Aye.
Councilmember DeLuca,
Aye.
Councilmember Cahill,
Aye.
Councilmember DeLong.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it 5-0. All right. Anything else you need from us, staff, for that?
Mayor, I need the second resolution for the revocation.
Okay, sorry. And that is the same number except ending in 02. Okay, looking for a resolution to approve, looking for a motion to approve the revocation resolution, which is number 21-0125-02.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember DeLuca,
Second.
moved by Councilmember DeLong, second by Councilmember DeLong. And it is a resolution, so it'll be roll call. So I turn it over to staff.
Mayor Moskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Fay,
Aye.
Councilmember Cahill,
Aye.
Councilmember DeLuca,
Aye.
Councilmember DeLong.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it 5-0. Thank you. Thank you for your work on that, staff and Planning Commission and everyone else. All right, next item of business this evening then is the January accounts payable. Any questions for staff?
Madam Mayor, I have a couple.
Okay, Councilmember Fay.
Hello, Frank. There are some Bolton and Mank, Hoffberry, as well as Terramark. In Terramark, they're referred to as pass-through. I'm assuming that means we will pay them and then we will bill them for reimbursement. Is that correct? Okay, but as far as the ones that have to deal with Hoffberry as well as Bolton and Mank, which would be engineering and legal respectively, there is nothing in this document that shows that it is passed through. Are we making sure that we are applying these to the escrows that we established last month?
That is what we will.
Because it looks as though they're being paid out of the general fund. I just want to make sure that they're reimbursed through escrow, and why there wouldn't be like an escrow designation or something along that line.
Mayor, we have both escrow and non-escrow requests here, of course. And I'll tell you, we will double check to make sure that any of these fees that are supposed to be escrows indeed are.
Okay. And then it seems odd, but is it realistic to think that we had $65,000 worth of finalized permits in the month of December?
That seems a little optimistic.
I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. That seems optimistic unless they weren't entered for the majority of the year.
Well, before we cut a check to West Metro Inspections, could you make sure that we're not writing a check to them for $65,000 if not necessary?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to guess that's the full year's. Your point is made, Councilman.
Thank you. And then one more thing, and that would be down in Verizon. There's a jetpack that I believe that belongs in the water treatment plant. This would be the
I got it.
third page,
164.
$1.64 typographical. I'm not sure.
It looks like it. I'll check that.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Hearing no other questions for accounts payable, I'm looking for a motion to accept the accounts payable.
So moved.
Moved by DeLuca,
Second.
second by Cahill. Any further discussion? All in favor of receiving the accounts payable by a show of hands? All right, I see 5 hands. Opposed, same sign. Accounts payable, our motion passes 5-0. Next item of business is our administrative reports. And tonight we are fortunate to have all of our staff live to do in-person reports. We're going to start with Fire Chief Ray McCoy, as I had moved that item in the beginning of the agenda. So I'm going to give him my seat so you can all see his lovely face.
Well, lovely face it is not, but I'll still give a report. So just kind of go through, you have the fire chief report in your packet. And I'm just going to go through some of the highlights. And if you have any questions, just make sure that you speak up and I'll try to be able to run this and recognize you. So the 2020 highlights, just going down through, we had the delivery of tanker 11 that had been worked on by a committee for a couple of years. And again, that kind of was designed in a way to be multifunctional. And in the short time we've had it, we've already used all the functions that we designed into it, including the direction sign for when we're on the scene of crashes, which has worked out really well. And people kind of understand what the sign is trying to tell them. And we've used the PTO pump that was put on it and on a couple of fires, and it's worked really well. And then we've used it for the traditional tanker mode for structure fires. We migrated to emergency reporting incident software. This got us into the 21st century when it comes to our incident reporting software. And we've just barely scratched the surface with everything that we can use it with. And I'll keep you posted as we expand into the different modules. Right now we have the incident software up and running. We have the training up and we have our truck checks all on emergency reporting. This summer, when we were able to get back into hands-on training, we did a lot of technical rescue training, which is working with ropes and high-level rescue or low-grade rescue, depending on the situation. Trained in our COVID-19 medical response. We used our online training, Target Solutions, extensively during our times when we could not meet in person to do our training. We outfitted each firefighter with a go bag, and basically it's just a oversized fanny pack or undersized backpack. It has all the personal PPE in it for COVID response, incident response. That each of the firefighters have all their own equipment in their bag, and that's worked out really, really well. We moved our base station from our apparatus bay to our meeting room, which gives a little cleaner space for our standby crew when the people are out on a call, and it's worked out really well. We also, with a COVID purchase, got a Clorox ionization machine, which makes sanitizing our fire trucks after calls and training very easy, quick, and efficient. And the last item, with a lot of regrets, we weren't able to have our community involvement events that we've had in the past, including Night to Unite in August. That's always a fun night to get out to the different neighborhoods and be able to interact with our citizens. Fire prevention activities with the Orono School District obviously were put on a hold. And again, that is a fun week to interact with our kids. And it's a lot of lasting relationships are always built through those. And of course, we always know the kids love to be in and around the fire trucks. Our community open house with Fire Prevention Week, and then our annual steak fry, all were put on hold due to the COVID event that we are in. The next item, personnel changes. We had a couple of resignation retirements this year. Dave Iser retired in January. We had Bart Kuski in December, and then CJ Johnson also went off leave and submitted his resignation. We hired two people, Lucas McCowan and Joey Doyle, both in May, and they are going through their firefighter 1 and medical training as we speak. And we have two more applicants that are currently in the hiring process. They're about halfway through. I would expect another couple months we would have them before the council for appointment. Our fire rescue calls to highlight, kind of attached to my report, is a statistical analysis of our calls. And in last year in 2020, we had 251 incidents and total hours of 2755. And then it broke them down. I kind of broke them down by our NIMFRS codes just so that reports from year to year will kind of reflect the same data. Our fires were 55. Our rescue and EMS calls 163, good intent, which includes cancellations while en route, or miscellaneous, so 29 and 4 respectively. The next item is just our breakdown by city. Again, these two items are included in our formula for the two cities between May Plain and Independence. And you can see the breakdown by calls there and the hours spent in each of those categories. And mutual aid, we had 20 calls. And again, you can see how they were listed where those 20 mutual aid calls took place. Just another interesting statistic, kind of between daytime and nighttime calls. 6 to 6 during the day, we had 150 calls. And 6 at night, 6 in the morning, we had 101 calls, about a 60-40 split there. And then next sheet, it just shows you the last 10 years of calls, and we're averaging about 275. And you can see we are down a little over 20 calls for the year of 2020. Any questions on calls at all? One of the things that is a blessing is with the different safety enhancement that everybody's been involved in. With Highway 12, we've seen a lot less personal injury crashes this year, although we did have a couple serious ones. Those numbers are down, which I'm very grateful for, and that is a blessing in itself. Kind of our public education training update. our training in 2020 looked a lot different than our normal year. We went to online training twice during the year, and again, using our Target Solutions, which is our online training software that we use, and that's been fortunate to have that up and running before COVID hit, because we were able to slide into that and get the necessary training for our training for our firefighters that we need. And again, talked about technical rescue earlier, and then we did walkthrough of the Haven Home Cassia facility. When it was about 75 to 80% complete, we had a chance to take our full fire department through there and kind of do a little pre-plan there. So, which was fortunate, again, because we were supposed to do a final walkthrough in December, which due to the COVID outbreak, we did not get to do that walkthrough. On the last sheet of your handout, I just kind of give you a little training analysis. In 2020, we had 118 different classes that our firefighters participated in. Total class hours are 438, and we had a total personnel hours in training of 1,855 hours. Fire inspection update. Brad Kauser's our fire inspector on our fire department. He's worked quite closely with Metro West on certain different facilities, and basically concentrate on the multiple dwelling buildings, as that's our highest risk. Also, I spent quite a bit of time at 1350 Bud Avenue on that property, and then worked a lot with Cassia in building and designing the fire protection systems in that facility there. As far as grants go, we're always, the officers and myself are always looking for any grants that would be feasible for a purchase of equipment. And the only upcoming date that I have, it's not on your agenda, but this afternoon, the next Fire Commission meeting was set for March 8th at 14:30 hours. So, any questions? Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to give an in-person report.
All right, thank you, Chief, for being with us tonight. Next, we will hear from our city planner, December monthly report.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Happy to present the monthly planning report for December 2020. Outside of our typical course of business and staff meetings that we have, a couple of highlights. We worked quite a bit on the conditional use permit that you saw earlier tonight, just trying to get that cleaned up and go through the right process to get that all put together. Did have a meeting with the potential developer 1741. As you know, that's the vacant property on the west side of Bud, just north of the intersection of Bud and Independence. There's been a lot of activity on that property, actively being listed. And so I've heard from a lot of potential buyers of that property, as well as I've been working with the realtor, just talking about that. I've seen or heard concepts ranging from, say, like a villa home type product to a apartment building. So there's activity on that. I did have a meeting with McGarry's to talk about their new marketplace. And then we also went through and have done a bunch of work trying to get their sign permits and everything up to speed, and still working through that with McGarry's, but they look like they're ready to go. I also had some correspondence relating to the developer of the 1432 Baker Park Road property. That's in Medina. And we've been talking to potential builder on that property. They're looking at doing a townhome project on that property. So they were asking questions about the city's availability of water and some of the other questions associated with that. We haven't seen any plans specifically, but getting questions on that. Continue to have some correspondence with the downtown developer. And then also working through the dog issue. We also talked about that tonight at a workshop. And then also have been hearing, and I know the council has as well, there's some activity. There's people calling, not only just appraisers, but also real estate professionals relating to the existing Haven Homes building and that property, and wanting to understand zoning and potential uses and things of that nature. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the report that was presented.
Any questions for our planner? All right. Thank you, Mark, for your report and for your work. All right, next we'll hear from Director of Public Safety, Chief Curls.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Included in your packet is the year-end December 2020 activity report for our police department. Just like to highlight that we ended the year with 5,224 incidents for 2020, and 1,800 of them were in the city of Maple Plain. For the month of December, there were 237 incidents in the city of Independence and 146 in the city of Maple Plain. I'll highlight a few cases for you, and then happy to answer any questions you might have. This Monday, December 7th was a busy Monday. Over the weekend, there were some thefts, and everybody was kind of coming to work or checking on their storage facilities. And there was a theft in the 5200 block of Independence Street. A work trailer was stolen, and several items were stolen out of it. That's currently under investigation. The 5300 block of Pioneer Creek Drive, we responded to a storage facility and met with a renter with their locker was broken into, and some antique items were missing, and that is under investigation. And then the 6200 block of Highway 12, we had some theft of catalytic converters were cut off of vehicles at that business as well. On December 9th, we responded to a local business who suspects came into the store and purchased rather large large value items, and then they wrote a check, an out-of-state check, did not get any identification, and they later learned from the bank a few days later that the check was altered and fictitious, and the case is under investigation. The good news is they upgraded their camera system, and we were able to get a very detailed vehicle description. Almost have the license plate, still working on the last few letters, and really good suspect descriptions. I will note, even in the case today, we had the mail theft and somebody trying to buy a bunch of items at a Target in Medina. The new norm of wearing a mask is being taken advantage of by our suspects. Literally, they go into the store with a winter cap on and a mask pulled up just below their eyes, and all you can see is their eyeballs, and they have gloves on, winter gloves. It's very difficult to get a good description of these suspects. I'll highlight, you probably noticed in the report, there's a lot of activity at the 1500 block of Howard Avenue. We do have one renter or tenant in that building that is calling the police and the fire department a lot for a medical condition that he has. It seems, in looking at the activity, he's called 23 times since he moved in June of this year, but he's actually called 17 of those 23 times in the last month. We have been working with adult protection, the managers of the facility, and trying to find a better solution for him to receive his medical needs. But you can pretty much know when you're going to get called, because he either got 4 days or 10 days worth of medication before he calls us the next time. So we've been dealing with that 17 times in the last month, and we're going to continue to try to use the resources we have and the social workers that we can use. But a lot of this is very, very difficult with COVID, just due to Hennepin County Adult Protection is not doing any in-home or on-site visits at this time. December 13th, I'd like to highlight, along with December 17th. Obviously, that's a four-day time span between the 13th and the 17th. And twice our officers went to a barricaded female that wanted to harm herself with a knife. Both times we successfully were able to talk to her on the phone and convince her to come out and then get put on a mental health and welfare hold through North Memorial Ambulance. All parties were extremely cooperative, and we really tried to help this person get the help that they needed. But I have to note that the second time in 4 days that a person that wanted to harm themselves with a knife and our officers got them out of their apartment, very, very disappointing that they were released from the hospital within 46 minutes of the officer clearing the call. And the officer actually called the emergency room, talked with the emergency room doctor and said, hey, we need a little bit of help here. This person needs help. This is what happened. And even with our persistence, she was back home within an hour and a half, back with her family after we put the health and welfare hold on her. Again, working with different organizations to try to see how can we do our job better and how can we work together better to try to actually get these people some really needed help with their mental health conditions. And then lastly, obviously, December 23rd, we had a pretty significant snowstorm that came through in the afternoon. And just to highlight, in both Maple Plain and Independence, we had 18 total vehicles go in the ditch and or crash during that time frame. And we saw the snowstorm coming. We did upgrade one extra officer on that night to help with it, and I'm glad we did. But that still shows me that even with all the changes we made on Highway 12 and all the education we do, still 18 people ended up in the ditch in our small area, and that's way too many. And then lastly, just kind of give a kudos to one of our officers. You know, I know like to highlight some of the things that we do that people don't notice necessarily. And that was on December 27th. You know, sometimes people ask, you know, what do the cops do at night? They just drive around and look for dogs, or what are they doing? And one of our officers at 2 in the morning was driving around and observed a lot of water coming out of a building at the 1200 block of Poplar Avenue. And it's not uncommon, you know, to have a water main break or utility. He actually went up to the window and saw that they had a pipe burst in the facility, and we were able to get a hold of the owner, and they came out and got a plumber and fixed it. So it did save them a considerable amount of damages by having us around, and save some city water at the same time. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you.
Any questions for Director Crowell? Right. Thank you for your work and for your report. Right. Next, we'll hear from David Martini, our city engineer.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. You have my report in your packet. Just a couple things to highlight. You know, we're less than a year into our time here with the city, so we are still working on some transition type services. You'll note I made a note in there that Ryan Coda, who's one of our experts related to water and wastewater treatment, spent some time with People Services staff going through the water plant just to get familiar with the system, type of equipment you have, and become familiar with that, just so that we can have better understanding of how your system is operating and be of assistance to People Services when they need it when it comes to water treatment. We also have worked to try to provide some expertise related to the buildings, HVAC systems, and some of the other facilities, just as we continue to work on putting your capital improvement plan together and some of that more long-term planning so that we can evaluate those systems that you have. So that's some work that, again, kind of back on us and trying to get familiar with the city and be ultimately a knowledgeable partner for you. The other thing that I have here is kind of an interesting one where we had a water service that was discovered. It's at the corner of Highway 12 and Bud Avenue. The property owner there was doing some renovation and inadvertently found a second water service to the building that was never abandoned. It got damaged during the process of the construction, and they sealed it off the best they could, but it was ongoing leak. So some coordination was done with People Services. Greg will probably maybe mention that in his report also, but ultimately we had to dig into Bud Avenue to get down to the water main to be able to shut that service that from my understanding, nobody was aware it was there. It's been shut off, temporarily patched back, so there'll be some work in the spring to make that a more permanent fix, but just wanted you to be aware of that. Haven Homes, we are still kind of just some ongoing support related to the maintenance bond, reviewing as-built plans, just making sure that everything's in place there, as we've discussed in previous meetings, that the security that the city needs to ultimately take over the public improvements associated with that project are in place. Just made a note in there, Veterans Memorial Park, as I'm sure you know, nothing has been happening with that. There has been some correspondence with the contractor related to some of the signage changes that we've talked about, so that we can get those set up and going right away in the spring. But essentially that project's just on hold for now. And then the bulk of our time has been related to completing the feasibility study, some coordination related to the proposals that you have in your packet tonight, to get a partner that can do some appraisals so that we can assess the benefit of the project. We'll go through that more here in a little bit, but that's, I guess, a summary of some of the things that we've been working on here over the last month or plus. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for David regarding the engineering report? Right. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Next, we'll hear from People Service with our Public Works report. And with us tonight is Greg Stang.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Again, my name is Greg Stang with People Service. In your council report is, in your packet, I should say, is the report from People Service. Just some of the highlighted items, I'll kind of go down in order, I guess. We did a lot of work at the Rainbow Park, including replacing the deck on the south side, what we'll say the proper way. I think it turned out well. We perform maintenance on the water plant, and what that one's referring to is the HMO pump polyphosphate and our chemical feed pumps in general. What's been happening in the water plant is, and this has been kind of an ongoing thing. It started, we just figured out it started with when we had to replace the potassium permanganate pump. What was happening is we were getting weird. Sometimes pumps would work, sometimes they wouldn't. The scales would, it wasn't really the scales, we were blaming it on the scales, and we'd blame it on the pump again, then we'd blame it on the controls, and then we ended up getting Total Control Systems. We could have Craig from Total Control, he's able to log into our computer system. And he could know everything should be working, the pump should be called for now, okay, go look at, that kind of stuff, and hey, it's running now. And then he would, well, you guys dig into the panel and see if you have power here, there, and we don't get very comfortable digging into panels and putting probes on stuff when it's, because if we do something wrong. And anyhow, so he came out and he was troubleshooting back and forth, and he said, well, you definitely have stray voltage in your control panel. Okay, so you need to get an electrician out here. So then we tried. One of the hard parts was finding an electrician who is, what we'll say, not capable, experienced in control panels at water plants or wastewater plants, don't matter. I even checked with the local electrician and said, hey, this is what we got going on. He said, I'm not comfortable doing that. Why don't you? So we ended up getting Quality Flow out there, who had an electrician that we'll say was experienced in there. He came out and the computer guy said it's something in the control panel. Control panel guy, or yeah, the computer guys, yeah, it's some electrical in there. And he said, well, there's something from the computer sending us the signal to keep these hot because these relays should not be running all the time. And like, we need both of you guys to get out here at one time to get this figured out because we're sick of the blame game back and forth. So finally, it took a while, but we got them out. In the meantime, we were able to run some of these chemical feed with extension cords. They're supposed to be plugged into outlets that are only operating when the well operates or when the high service pumps operate. But long story short, it's been a week ago now, Friday, or a week ago today, that we had both of the guys out there. And we ended up, what they found is when we had problems with our potassium permanganate pump, it wasn't this Vince who was out, but it was another guy came and replaced the pump and he wired it in and everything the same as what the other one was, but the control panel is a little different. And we were getting feedback from that pump back in to our control panel. And that's where we were getting stray voltage coming from in the control panel, which it caused a lot of goofy gremlins. And we couldn't figure out why certain things were running at certain times. Why wouldn't this relay kick in? And plus the two guys last week, they were able to label the outlets in there were like potassium permanganate outlet that was labeled that was not wired into that relay. So the outlets weren't even labeled right. So we had things not plugged in and it was kind of a mess, but it got straightened out when we had the right people out there to guide us. You know, like I say, digging into them control panels and stuff, that's kind of above and beyond. And then you get computer guy blaming the control panel, the electrician, I should say, blaming the computer, saying it's sending the signal. Why are we getting power here? But finally, they both got out there. We got it resolved. And now we've had consistent chemical usage now for the last week. I was just there today and I was checking all the numbers and that, and everything's been consistent every day, which is finally very nice to see. Very nice. That was our bigger problems at the water plant. And through this whole thing though, we've, you know, we have to do, our chlorine was never affected because that's in a whole different area. Our chlorine is never really affected, but the water was always 100% safe to drink, always 100% safe to consume. A lot of it was like the water filter plant, it's going to be more the aesthetics of the water. You know, if you're going to, it wouldn't put out as high a quality water if some of these chemicals ain't working. We've been doing a lot of tests around town, city halls, you know, you name it, different businesses and the water plant and at the water plant itself. And we have been putting out still very high quality water, well below the secondary standards of the Department of Health. You know, and during this, we even had communication with the Department of Health saying, hey, you know, this is what's going on. And, you know, just to give you a heads up, and they said, well, keep going at it, you know, and their big thing is, of course, the back T test. We have to do 2 of them a month. And we've always been passing them also. You know, we have to do the fluoride test and that kind of stuff. And our the radium test that gets done once a year, we've always passed that. And everything's going good now there. Next things down, we had, like David had talked about on Bud Avenue, that water leak. That was you know, you learn something new every day, how things get done. And this was basically, it was not properly, it was a water service that was, we're guessing back in 1972 when that one house was built. That's when the one house on the corner of Bud there, it got built and the other one was remodeled at that time, supposedly. And that's when we figured that one service was abandoned, but not abandoned properly. So we had to go shut it off at the main to avoid, you know, future problems. That way the problem's going to be going away. But it was interesting. He was like, hey, we have a water leak in our house. So we go out there, you know, we find a curb stop and everything. I happened to be on site that day and we go shut it off thinking, hey, this is going to take care of the problem. And we were kind of wondering because the shut off was way on one side of the house and his leak, he's like, well, my water is coming in way over there. This is not making sense. Where's your meter? Well, it's way over there. Uh-oh. But it did not shut it off, obviously, when we did find it and tried to shut it off. And ended up finding the original shut off on the west side of that house on Bud Avenue, so it was right along the brush line there, so. Things happen. Then we had another interesting water leak at a house on Spring. We found the curb stop, got on it, shut it off, and we knew where the leak was, and immediately you could see the water level dropping in the yard. Say, oh, perfect, this is the leak. I don't know, it's probably 15, 20 minutes later, half hour later, all of a sudden the beef business, I forget what it's called, right on the corner on 12 there. That place, we shut their water off from the house kitty corner on that block. That's where the shut off was. And when we did go looking, we assumed being it's in this one property, it's going to be their shut off. It wasn't. Then when we did find the actual tie-in cards, it did show that water service went across that property into the neighbor to the west and then cut across right up to the beef place there. So that was another interesting one. Like I said, we learn something new every day. There's always new challenges. Then we had water sewer inspections, that kind of stuff, loss of pressure. Did a lot of locates, a lot of water sampling, that stuff. Got yeah, Bolton and Mink, like David said, he had came out. They did tours of the facility. Been doing, as they get time, been doing a lot of straightening out, that kind of stuff in the water plant and the shop. Water plant's pretty good. The shop, it's still got a ways to go, but it's steady by jerks. It's getting there. I'm done with this report. I got more items. Any questions on the report?
Just one, Greg. My monthly call out on so I'm assuming that the issues that were going on with the different pumps over there are going to be resolved. I'm just looking at the chemicals used, and they're just all over the place. I mean, like you're talking 200 one month and 14 the next, and then back up to 100. It just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
No, you're exactly right. And yes, that issue there'll still be some, depending on the wells being used and stuff, some of the chemical ain't used because you got to add it with one well, not the other. So there's a little bit of that going on. There's a little bit of that, but also we couldn't get consistency. It was very frustrating. Because like the big question would be, did we use chemical in yesterday? Well, let's figure it out. And then what's happened when they're not running, we ended up finding that the one with the HMO, they would solidify. We were having problems with some of the lines getting plugged up because it was if it wasn't running fast enough. And then the mixers also are in this mix with running or not running. If the mixers don't run, you get a little bit of settling in the tank because you got to mix the stuff up. And then the pumps suck in this stuff and then they're plugged. So you think you have the problem solved. And yeah, I'm very, very happy now that the electrician, the computer guy were both able to come out there. We found where there was getting feedback into the control panel and we're on our road now. Like I said, the last week we've had consistent usage.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Daily usage. Yep. Any other questions on that report? Okay, another item, just keep you informed on our staffing over in Maple Plain. I have hired a new full-time guy. His name is Dylan Hofflock. Dylan will be starting officially full-time permanent on boots on the ground every day will be on March 1st. He has been helping out occasionally. I think some of you guys have probably met him already. He has been helping out as we can free him up. The reason I was able to give him a little more time because we do have Josh yet on staff, and Josh is going to be here until he starts up with the curb and gutter that he's been doing. That's his summer job. And Josh is a licensed operator, but he's not ready to make a commitment to a city job kind of thing. He was on unemployment, but he's like, I'm too bored. I want to come work. So he came and worked for us, helping out until Dylan can come full-time permanent, and then they'll both work together for a while. But Dylan will be starting the 3rd. He has a lot of, he used to build water plants and wastewater plants is what it is. And he's very good mechanically. He can figure things out. He was there helping with that decking at the Rainbow Park. Some other things. He's done a lot of work in the shop already. He's going to be a huge asset for the city. He's very personable. He's good. He's a good communicator, and he will do well. I would have had him with tonight to meet you guys, but being it's not in person, hopefully next meeting we can all be in person and we can, let you meet him. Another item, I don't think Frank had informed you guys, but I brought him, it kind of looks like this today. I made a copy of it just so I could show you, but I brought a check into City Hall today for $5,060. What happened is you guys had some asphalt work done, the pothole stuff earlier this year. And I remember when this all went on, I remember Cody talking, him and Bobby had to get a hold of J&W to get them back out there because there's some potholes missed, that kind of stuff. Here, the city of Spring Park was going through, Sean, who helps out in Maple Plain also, and they were going through their billing and stuff, and they're like, well, we never got billed for any of our asphalt and stuff. So they got a hold of this J&W, and then J&W realized they billed Maple Plain twice, and they did not bill Spring Park. So they 100 times over apologize, and they even have written right on the check billing there with the city of Spring Park, and they wanted to send you guys a check direct. I said they'll be really confused if you do that. I'll just explain what happened. And because the bill was sent originally to Cody forwarded it right on to Bobby. It went through and got paid, and that's what happened. And there's the money back. It's I'm glad it got back to you guys. That's for sure.
Well, kudos to JW and to Spring Park.
Yeah, exactly. Can usage of them. And then a quick update. I think this was more for Councilmember DeLong, that we had talked about the backhoe and stuff, and that we do have. Remember, if he remembers, we were talking about the leaks and stuff underneath it and that. Well, we had it serviced, and we did figure out once they had it all torn apart and stuff, it was not cylinders like we were fearing or anything else. It was actually some hose clamps, some fittings that were loose. They were able to tighten them up, and the leaks are gone. So that's huge, very huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, vehicles getting maintained. There was a pin. I don't know if Josh was using it or if someone else was, but there was a pin sheared on that snowblower on the little tractor, so that got fixed today. So I'll be happy to answer any more questions if anyone has any.
Greg, thanks for all the great work. Do you know when we'll be able, or we can expect to see the maintenance logs on each piece of equipment? I know that was something staff was going to be working on.
Okay, I did not look in the last report if they were not part of. I don't have that part.
You can just look into it for next month,
Yeah,
just as long as it's still on your radar. I'd appreciate it.
Yep, will do.
Any other questions for Greg? All right, thank you for your work and problem solving and your report this evening.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right, with that, I am looking for a motion to receive all administrative reports A through E.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
Second.
second by Fay. All in favor of receiving the administrative reports as submitted and as heard this evening by a show of hands? All right, I see 5 hands. Opposed by a show of hands. All right, reports are received 5-0. Next, we'll move on to old business. Letter A, approval of preparation of notice of intent to call the letter of credit for the Meadows development. I'll turn that over to, I believe, Frank.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. On August 25th, 2015, the city approved the development agreement for the Meadows of Maple Plain. That subdivision is now more or less built out, save one, and that one thing is a tot lot play area, which was supposed to be provided together with the subdivision. Over the years, we have tried to work with the developer, Bob Ingstrom, doing business as REC, and there have been a number of delays. During one period of time, he was seeking to have what I would call non-commercial grade, non-city grade equipment installed. In another case, the edging for the equipment, they requested fiberglass, which just doesn't work in this environment as opposed to concrete. Well, thanks to the hard work of Mark Coltis and others on the staff, we have been able to get Mr. Engstrom to design a tot lot. By the way, and largely because the council didn't accept some of these other lesser proposals, to propose a tot lot which meets the city's standards. The trouble is, we are still 5 years away from the time, December 15, 2015, when that tot lot was supposed to be done. And we have nothing but a vacant lot, more or less. So the recommendation to the city council to expedite this matter, to assure that the work is done, since people paid for the tot lot that they're not getting right now, is to file, based upon the recommendation of the city attorney, a notice of default. And that notice of default would indicate to Mr. Engstrom that the city will call upon his letter of credit if a few things don't happen. And those few things are as follows. First, by February 15th, he has to demonstrate that he has ordered the equipment that's necessary to complete the tot lot. And this is a little bit of an arbitrary number, put 50% of the amount of that order down. That's a significant amount of money considering the tot lot equipment and labor associated with it is just over $60,000. It means he would have to put down 30,000, of course. And secondly, he would have to complete the work no later than June 15. If either of those triggers is not met, then we would call upon his letter of credit in order to make sure that we can take control of the money, get the order made, get the tot lot installed. Now, as a courtesy, I did send a letter to Mr. Engstrom indicating what I'm recommending to the city council. He sent me in return a multi-page invoice and plan from Flagship Recreation, total amount $63,149.20. So he does apparently have this equipment on order, but somewhere in here the paperwork says that he does not have to pay for it in advance because he's being considered as a municipality. I talked to Mr. Engstrom, as I said earlier today, and he's quite angry, I think specifically with me. He feels that $30,000 is an unrealistic number. He said he would be glad to put down $10,000. I said I would convey that to the city council to see if that was adequate from your perspective. I do have to say it is good news to see these invoices here, but we've seen these invoices, dare I say, for years. I could be wrong, Mark, on that. Mark has been the guy who's had to deal with this, but this is probably as far as we've gone. I would recommend that you proceed with the letter of default. You may want to adjust that dollar amount to be more reasonable. You know, the idea there is simply leverage to make sure he keeps moving in this direction. I'm available for any questions council members may have.
Any questions for staff?
How long
ahead,
is the line of
Councilmember
credit? How long is the line of credit valid for, Frank?
The letter of credit,
Or letter of credit?
was extended until I'm thinking September of this year.
Okay, so it's still valid past the date that we're requiring completion.
Right.
Okay.
And that was the key. We wanted those to interlock.
Okay.
I'm comfortable leaving it with the 30 grand. I mean, the playground was supposed to be built 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago. So I'm comfortable with approving it as is unless someone feels strongly otherwise.
He's gonna have to pay 60 anyway.
Exactly. And it should have been paid 5.5 years ago. Councilmember DeLuca.
I think we want to be careful here, folks. We're trying to use $40,000 worth of leverage to get a $60,000 project. You push him hard enough, I think he would say, fine, walk away, take my 40,000 and do your $60,000 project. If he's got an invoice, if he's on a path to get this done, and we don't see it done by June, we pull his money. But I want to give him the benefit of the doubt at this point that I don't want to try to push 60 with a $40,000 invoice. We only have $40,000 to play with here if he walks away.
Frank, what's the date on that invoice from Flagship?
Interesting. It's 1/22/21. It expires 3/08/21. Now, it could
Someone's
have
not
just,
being honest.
that
Well,
could
and I
be,
don't like the fact that they're not charging him up front because of a municipality. The playground is for the city, but we're not purchasing it and installing it. It's his company. It's Ingstrom's.
A little back history. Granted, it was a Rotary project in concert with the city of Maple Plain. I was required to put 50% down on $10,000 worth of benches. And once then after they were delivered, the other 50% was due. So this was a city project, granted, sponsored by Rotary. I didn't get that kind of, do I need to call my Flagship guy and find out what's going on here? I will.
I think Mike's comments are very valid. But it seems like it requires us to do something with some kind of a timeline for anything to happen every time with this project. You know, like you said, John, and I noticed it too. I looked at the dates on the information, you know, and that is not really an invoice. That's pretty much him, you know, an order sheet where he's picking out color palettes and whatnot, but there's nothing to say that he executed anything there. And it required Frank sending him an email that brought this on now to where now all of a sudden there's movement again. So I do think there needs to be some timeline on there to prove that this is actually moving forward, or we're going to get to that June date and probably not have anything. But I do respect exactly what Mike did say though. You know, there's $20,000 delta there that we could lose out on. So.
There's some way, Frank, to confirm that the order has been placed. That's what we need, not a piece of paper that says he's picking out palette colors. I want to see the order placed. And then if it's between him and Flagship, whether he doesn't execute that, then it's on him.
But we also need to make sure that there's clear communication that this is not on the city. All of a sudden, I don't want playground equipment showing up and then we're getting billed. Mark?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I did reach out to Flagship today and they did confirm with me that they have placed the order and that they were not requiring a down payment. So I did confirm that the order is placed. I have had quite a bit of correspondence with the Flagship representative in the last 6 months on this piece, just trying to coordinate some of these things. But the representative from Flagship represented to me today that they had placed the order.
well, would the council like to use the $10,000? He, Mr. Ingstrom himself said that was reasonable.
Did you say that it's a $60,000 project or a $60,000 invoice and we have a $47,000 line of credit?
Yeah, our letter of credit is in the amount of 47, at least that's what I remember before, 63,149.20.
That's a little over $16,000 difference between the 47 and the 63.
Yes.
why don't we make the down money the difference between his letter of credit and the invoice amount? So that if he does fail, Mike has got his 60,000 because we got the 13 down and the 47 or 16 down and the 47 line of credit. There's your $63,000 to complete the project. Is that possible? That's a legal question.
I would certainly check, but we were going to ask for 30. So if that was legal, why wouldn't the other be? Scott has been working with us on this.
Well, but what I'm getting at is the 30 would be towards the 47 if he bails, right, Mike? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, remember, every time that we have Scott looking at something or Mark, we're chipping away at that amount because their fees are coming out of the escrow, out of what's left there, unless he's paying those bills. We got to get this thing done. If the order's been placed, great. He's willing to put $10,000 or $20,000 towards it, even more cushion for us.
Meet him halfway, 15,000.
15.
Yeah.
That's what I was just gonna say. Let's compromise.
Yeah, and put him
He
on,
said
and put him
10,
on
we
a
said
short
30.
leash, Frank.
Well, he is. I mean, that's why
And
we're
what I
saying
mean is
action.
regular updates.
Sure. Okay, we can do that. Does the council want to move and second the proposal to send the letter with the substitutions you've indicated? 15,000, not 30,000.
I'll make that motion, Frank.
Motion by DeLong,
I'd second that, Mayor.
second by DeLuca. All in favor, by a show of hands? There, you are. Okay, I see 5. Opposed? All right, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone, for your work on that and creativity and getting into a resolution. All right, next we'll move on to new business. First item of new business this evening is to consider approval of a resolution receiving and approving the feasibility report and calling for a public hearing for the 2021 street improvement project.
That would be City Engineer Dave Martini.
All right.
Your Honor, members of the council, Frank, is it possible for me to share
Yeah.
my screen?
I'm sorry. There we go. You should in a moment.
All right, just
Can you now? Yep.
all right. You can see my screen, hopefully.
Yes.
So the purpose of tonight is to present the feasibility study for you, and presuming we're going to move forward with the project, the action would be for you to accept the feasibility report tonight and order the improvement hearing. So what I wanted to do is just give you an overview of the report in its final form, and then we'll have some time for questions, discussions at the end. All right. So if you recall, it was back in October, I believe, when the council authorized preparation of the feasibility study, and the scope of the work or the project area was reconstruction for Drake Street, Gladview Lane, Perkins Lane, and Bradford Street. As part of the report, all of the infrastructure elements within the project area were evaluated, and the report ultimately provides a description of the proposed improvements, cost estimates for the work that's proposed, a cost apportionment as far as how the cost will be split between city, and assessments to the benefiting properties, and it includes a preliminary assessment role based on the city's assessment policy. This is just I guess an exhibit showing the project area. The proposed improvements, again, includes the complete reconstruction of the streets in the project area. New curb and gutter will be added. Storm sewer will be extended in some locations. The water main and the services will be replaced to the right of way, as well as the sanitary sewer and the services to the right of way. One thing I will add, since we had our preliminary discussion with the report, is we have added some language in there about assessing the conditions of the sewer services that extend onto private property, so that we can get an assessment as to their condition and whether or not there's any I&I issues that need to be addressed. At that time, we would make the property owner aware of any issues that we discover, and that they need to correct those issues, and give them the opportunity to include that work in the project and be added to their assessments. Just a depiction of the water main in the project area here. This is how the sanitary sewer lays out in the project area. So from a cost standpoint, the total estimated cost of the project is $2,266,000. The assessment policy is that 35% would be assessed to the benefiting properties. If you apply the assessment policy, the city contribution for the project is $1,473,000. The assessable portion is $793,000. Just the exhibit showing the assessment area. If you'll recall, last time we talked about this, there are some properties that were assessed on previous projects that aren't getting street assessments on this project, but anybody that is getting water or sewer improvements is being assessed for those portions of the project. So from an assessable portion, as we discussed previously, the proposal would be to assess these properties on a per unit basis. The street and storm cost is $468,562. That equates to $12,230 per unit. Water maintenance services is $212,000. It equates to about $5,300 per unit. And the sewer service, $112,546, or about $3,041 per unit. So from a conclusion of the feasibility report is that from an engineering perspective, the proposed improvements are feasible, they're cost effective and necessary to maintain the city's existing infrastructure. So for a schedule and next steps for the project, where we're at tonight then is, again, presenting the feasibility report to the council. And assuming that you wish to move forward with the project, you have a resolution in your packet to order the improvement hearing, which is we're proposing for February 22nd. You can see here then we've laid out the schedule as far as the notices that are required for the improvement hearing. Week of February 1st, getting, which is next week, getting the mailed notices out. The week of February 1st and the 8th would be when the notice of the hearing would be advertised in the local newspaper. One thing that we've added in here is the week before the public hearing is the week of February 15th is we're proposing to hold kind of an open house style meeting for the project to give residents kind of one more opportunity to learn about the project, a little bit more of an informal setting, a chance to maybe talk about property specific questions or concerns. And so I guess the idea would be another opportunity for providing information, but then also ahead of the improvement hearing, giving us a chance to hear what's on the residents' mind, some of the questions, comments that we would receive at that time, which we could potentially make sure that if there's unanswered questions that we can incorporate that into our presentation for the improvement hearing on the 22nd. On the 22nd, after the improvement hearing, again, assuming the council wishes to continue with the project, at that time is when you would order the improvements. And then what we would look at is to open bids on April 14th, ultimately bring the award back to the council at your business meeting on April 26th. and then proceed with construction during the summer and look to have a final assessment hearing in the fall of 2021, or I guess we are in 2021 now. So later this year. And with that, I know that's kind of a quick overview of the report. The complete report is in your packet, but be happy to answer questions or have discussion on the proposed project.
Any questions for David, our engineer? Councilmember DeLuca?
David, I looked at your schedule, and is it necessary for there to be 12 days between the opening of the bids and the award of the bids? In previous projects we've done, we've been as tight as bids were opened at 10 o'clock and were awarded that night. Why do we have 12 days? Seems like we're losing almost 2 weeks of spring. And as we know from previous projects, sometimes every day you get is important.
Yeah, so that's a good question. The schedule was laid out to hit your scheduled business meetings. So when we were looking at ordering the improvements on February 22nd, it wasn't from getting the plans and specs put together, advertising out for bids. We weren't able to hit the business meeting in March, which then moved us out to April. If the council was open to the idea of having a special council meeting once we open bids, I think it's possible for us to tighten that timeline up.
I would recommend you work with Frank and the new administrator and the mayor on scheduling something. It just seems like we're wasting 12 days there.
Yep, no, and that, like you say, it was all revolving around the normal schedule of the council meetings, but there is some room to tighten that up.
Councilmember Fay.
I've got a few questions, David, but I want to tag off of Councilmember DeLuca's question there, and I'm less concerned about the 12 days between the 14th and the 26th of April as I am that period between the third week of February and the middle of April. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if there's any means to shorten that period. That is when you solicit for bids. I'm sure there's statutorily required periods, but I mean, my concern, I guess, is that this is, there's a lot of people bidding street projects right now, January, February, and we're going out to looks like March. Are we losing the potential for contractors?
Well, I guess, so a couple things there. One is, you are correct, is when I look at tightening up the timeline, you're correct. Once the bids are open, the timeline between opening the bids and awarding it isn't necessarily critical at that point. Unless we're, to Mr. DeLuca's point, if we're having a really good spring, potentially the starting date could get adjusted there. What I would look to do, though, is if you're willing to have a special council meeting to move that April 14th date up as much as we can to get the bids out sooner than later. To the point of, are we missing out on contractors? I've done this a number of different ways, a number of different times. You never know exactly, but I've seen it where you get into the springtime like this also, and you have a couple contractors that haven't been as lucky with filling up their workload, and that works to your advantage sometimes too also. So I've seen it kind of play out a lot of different ways that can still ensure that the city is getting competitive bids and good value for the project. But I agree with the concept of tightening up that timeline, if that's what you want to do, and we can work on setting the council approval.
David, you and Frank and I and Clarissa will work on the timeline and the dates, and then happy to call a special meeting for something as important as this.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Fay?
Yeah, and question number 2, David, has to do with the drain tile. I don't know if we ever reached a resolution on this, but it looks to be that there's well over $100,000 in drain tile, and then we have no agreement that anyone's going to tie into it.
Correct.
So the question is, from Frank's standpoint, is there anything that we can do as far as ordinance? Or number two, is it something that can be bid out as an addendum to the contract so that we can make a determination whether we want to incur that kind of costs or not?
Yeah. So a couple of things with that, and thank you for pointing that out. I should have mentioned it in the presentation because we talked about that last time we reviewed this. So where we're at right now, or as I'm viewing this, is kind of from a cost standpoint that this is our high end, that we have some flexibility or some moving parts in there, I guess, most notably from a drainage standpoint. The reason that we left it the way it was, we also talked Councilmember Fay about whether or not there was a need to extend the drain tile or the storm sewer up Drake farther than what we're showing now also. So we've left those storm sewer costs in there as is, with the idea of one of the things we'd like to do through that open house meeting and potentially the improvement hearing is try to get some feedback from the residents about any known drainage issues that exist out there, so that if we're going to be extending storm sewer, if we're going to put in all or just a portion of that drain tile, that we're doing it strategically. So we've kind of left it in there as a placeholder right now, with the idea that if the residents are helping us out, we're going to be able to fine tune where the issues are that we're really trying to address. At a minimum, we think with the sand section that we have in there, we're going to need some drain tile in the low areas just to drain the subgrade of the road. But if there are known issues that we're hearing about, some of that drain tile we're anticipating is going to go away.
Okay, and then the third question, and I hope I'm not muddying waters, but is there a possibility that we can tie in a parking lot improvement at Veterans Memorial Park, curbs, gutters, storm sewer, into this as an addendum?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. We haven't forgot about that. We've gotten some information from Mark Cultus about kind of some of the past planning that's gone with that. So yes, we're anticipating that the parking lot improvements will be part of the plan set that gets put together, and that you'll be getting some information on that to make sure that what's being put together is consistent with your direction.
Super, thank you, that's all.
Any other questions? Councilmember Cahill.
Presuming that we approve the special benefit analysis in the next item, where in the timeline would that fall? Is it possible that we'll have at least some of that data before we have the hearing?
Don't know for sure, but the hope is that we're going to at least get some sort of a verbal indication from the work that they've done to help us at the improvement hearing. Ultimately the final assessment hearing won't be until the fall of or this coming fall, but I have a couple different places where I think that fits in. Ultimately, it would be nice to have whatever information we get from them for the public hearing, because obviously we'll be talking about the accessible portion of the project with the residents who presumably will have questions and potentially concerns about those dollar amounts. The second place that this potentially falls into is, at a minimum, when you're in a place to award the project. At that point, you'll have, we're anticipating that you'll have the final report at that point in the process also, so that when you're choosing to move forward with the project, you're going to have that more detailed information as far as the accessible portion of the project to help you make the decision as you're moving forward, what adjustments, if any, you would look to make to your accessible portion. So just from a financing standpoint and kind of an understanding of how this gets paid for, you would have that information at that time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. With that, then I am looking for a motion to accept the feasibility study and order the improvement hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
I'll second.
second by DeLong. Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the feasibility study and ordering the improvement hearing by a show of hands?
Your Honor, we are recommending that this be approved by resolution. And I believe you have
I'm sorry.
one in your packet.
Yes. I need to
Mayor,
find that.
Mayor,
Yes,
resolution 21-125, excuse me, -0125-03.
okay. All right, let's redo that then, using the proper information. So redo. I am looking for a motion to approve resolution 21-0125-03.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
Second.
second by DeLong. And any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to staff for a roll call vote.
Mayor Moskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Fay,
Aye.
Councilmember DeLuca,
Aye.
Councilmember DeLong,
Aye.
Councilmember Cahill.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
All right, then the next item of business is to consider approval of a special benefit analysis for the 2021 public improvement project. And I'll turn that back over to our engineer, David.
Yes, so we've provided you two proposals here, one from Patchen Mesner and then the other one from CBRE. I'll kind of back up and apologize for some of the clumsiness, I'll call it, for getting these put together. When we first talked about CBRE, we're having some problems kind of tracking down the appropriate contacts from where you've from the previous projects, and that's kind of how Patchen Mesner came into the mix, because we were trying to make sure that we were keeping that piece of the process moving and get you some information on that. With that said, we do have the two proposals now. Patchen Mesner gave us a range of between 7,000 and 8,500 with a not to exceed of 8,500. My impression from the Patchen Mesner proposal is that theirs is a little bit more of a general review of the project area as compared to CBRE, whose proposal is looking at the properties just on the outside. They call it phase one, but they have a not to exceed fee of $12,000, and then a phase two of $1,500 per property if they were to go property by property with permission to actually go into the homes. The CBRE, my understanding is they actually do a detailed analysis of all 40 properties in the project area, where again, my impression and understanding of the Patchen Mesner proposal is it's a little bit more of a general look at the overall project area. I'm comfortable moving forward with either of these proposals, but I will say that knowing that you've worked with CBRE in the past, if you're comfortable with the product or the deliverables that they've given you on past projects, I do think it makes sense for consistency's sake to continue with their services. But again, we'd be comfortable working with coordinating with either of those firms to get that work done. So with that, we've provided you the information that we've collected, and I'd be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I'll look to you for some direction.
Questions for staff?
More of a comment. I was probably the one most vocal last meeting, not liking Patchen's proposal. And because I only had that to compare with what CBRE did for us for the 2018 project. And not only that, but the price we paid for CBRE back in 2018 was less than what Patchen was asking for in 2021. So that being said, CBRE did four detailed properties for us because they picked 4 properties that were kind of representative of all 36 or 37 properties. And so now to have Kevin Meeks come through and do a complete 180 on how he's analyzing these, in which he's going to do for $12,000, he's going to do an exterior survey of 40 properties, and then on top of that, charge us $100 or $1,500 or whatever for property for more detail. I'm having a hard time comparing apples to oranges anymore, because now all of a sudden Patchen looks real good from a price standpoint. But I mean, do you have any idea why CBRE didn't propose the same type of process or procedure that they did 3 years ago?
I do not. When I talked to them, I believe I was clear in saying that you were looking for the same services you've had in the past, being a little bit not having a full understanding of what those services were or firsthand. Was kind of.
I mean, for your reference, they charged us $7,200 to evaluate 4 properties, and each one of these properties was like 150 or 160 pages long. They went detailed into comparables and the whole 9 yards, and we were able to use that information from them to obviously, in good faith, tell homeowners that we're going to assess them $18,000 or whatever it was. And I just only hope, I'm mixed. I don't know. I honestly don't know which direction to go now.
Well, the prices aren't even close.
Not even close.
I mean, but why would have they proposed, David? Sorry, have they proposed to actually do all 40 houses internally that are allowed?
My understanding is that they were intending to what it said in their phase 1 was conduct a physical exterior inspection of the 40 properties in the project area. And that's where, to Councilmember Fay's point, it seems like compared to what they had done for you in the past, this is a more comprehensive look of the project area, which again, kind of going back to the Patch and Mesner, that was more the impression I had from them, was looking at this kind of more in general to assess what the improvements in the project area are generally going to do to the property values. I would, again, going back, if you're comfortable with CBRE, I believe that I'd be more than happy to go back to them and say, that they need to adjust their scope of work. The one thing we just want to make sure we're doing, I guess, is keeping this thing moving, because we don't want to lose time on, I guess, going back and forth on it. So, if you were comfortable with CBRE and you want to give me a not to exceed that you're comfortable with, we'll go back and we'll get the scope of work to match what the appropriate price is.
Well, I guess my question is, do we need to do all 40 properties? You said yourself there's some consistencies in them that you were comfortable basing things on a linear foot basis because there's some continuity to these neighborhoods. And so I honestly don't know if we need every individual one. We need an expert to pick 4 and say, I need $1,800 per property to do a detailed cost analysis, taking comparables and what they did before. If you want, I can forward you the CBRE documents that they gave us 3 years ago.
The issue here that's been lost, and I see where it got lost. We have a new administrator, we have a new engineer. John is 100% correct here. What we had done several years ago was we took 4 representative properties that represented the scale of the types of properties that were on there, had 4 very specific ones, and then said, hey, this one, you were close to this one, therefore this is how yours plays out. And that played well. The impression here that I got was very similar to John's. there are several, 3, 4 different, I mean, we may even stretch to get 4 different ones on this one. But I think you go back to CBRE and just have them do it that same way. Pick 4 different types of properties and be done.
So
that's the defense we need.
Yep, no, and I understand that completely. So if from a just a direction standpoint, would you be comfortable approving a not to exceed, pick the number, if it's 12,000, looks like it would be the absolute worst case scenario, with the understanding that we're going back to them with a better understanding of what we're asking for? Or how would you like to? It sounds like you like CBRE and the product and the work they did for you before. We just got to match that.
Again, they 3 years ago, they charged us $7,200 for 4 properties, which is, what's that, 36 divided, $1,800 a property. That's pretty consistent with their not to exceed $1,500 per property on phase 2.
Right.
So my thought is, why are we doing phase 1? Why don't they just do a detailed, pick 4 representative samples, 3 representative samples that will illustrate essentially every one of those properties of the 40. Tell me how much is it going to cost to do a full cost analysis using comparables before, during, and after in comparable cities and things of that nature. And then I can't see they're going to say, well, it was $1,800 3 years ago and now they're $3,600 a piece.
Right.
You know, it's going to be consistent with 1,800, I suspect. You know,
right. Just doing real, I guess rounding. If it was $2,000 a property, you'd be looking at $8,000.
All right, Councilmember Fay or Councilmember DeLuca, are you comfortable making a motion?
Well,
or do we?
Yeah, I guess $250 an hour is 8 hours per property. And keep in mind that once they do the analysis, the balance of the bookwork is cut and paste throughout the process. So, I mean, I suppose $250 per hour, not to exceed $2,000 per property, and we get the same type of modeling that we did 3 years ago. Is that? I know that's not a motion. That's a lot of more chitter chat.
All right.
I'll make a motion not to exceed $2,000 per property, up to 4 properties.
Going with CBRE. Oh, Councilmember DeLuca. Oh, you seconded that? All right, so there's a motion on the table to go with CBRE for the special benefit analysis for the 2021 public improvement project, not to exceed $2,000 up to 4 households. There is a motion by Fay, second by DeLuca. Any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, all in favor of approving that?
Sorry.
Show of hands.
What happens if they don't take that?
I'm very persuasive.
Okay, just check. I just didn't know if there's a plan B.
David will be calling me and we'll be setting up an emergency meeting.
Okay.
So we don't lose a whole month.
All right.
Does that sound good? All right. So all in favor of approving that, show of hands. All right, I see 5 hands, so opposed. There should be no hands. All right, so that motion is approved 5-0.
Thank you. And I'll get in touch with them right away tomorrow morning. So if we know there's any hiccups in that plan, you'll know right away.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right, moving on to letter C, consider approval of appointments of captains and lieutenants for the fire department, and I will turn that over to Frank.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. We have proceeded in accordance with the SOGs, first to hire a fire chief for the next 3 years, then next to hire 2 assistant chiefs. All 3 of those positions have now been filled. And we have proceeded through the SOGs to, in an effort to hire 2 captains and 2 lieutenants for the fire department. We did have a total of 7 firefighters interview for these positions. I had the opportunity to join Chief McCoy and his 2 assistant chiefs in all 7 of those interviews. The names of the individuals are in your agenda report. Mayor, members of the council, it is recommended that the following appointments be made. First of all, Jay McCoy and Ed McGinty as captains, and Jake Marin and Zach Christensen as lieutenants, effective January 1, 2021, as recommended by the memorandum from the interview panel. Be glad to answer any questions.
Councilmember Fay.
Not really a question, but just following up from the Fire Commission meeting today, and I'm not quite sure how to handle this. I inquired, if you look in the job description, which is the 3rd to the last page of the packet, shows revised 12/1 of 20, and it refers to compensation and benefits, and the line item number 1 is compensation is outlined in Fire Department Policy 1201.7. I inquired to Frank to pull that document for me. I inquired to Chief McCoy to pull that document for me. They really couldn't. And what I came up with was a document that showed that both lieutenant and captain per diem was $2,200 a year. And Chief McCoy was opposed to a lieutenant making the same annual per diem as a captain. And so the policy right now states $2,200, and Chief McCoy would like it to be $2,200 for the captains and $1,800 for the lieutenants. So my question is, do we approve this with the understanding that the Personnel Committee is going to go in and change that appendix to the personnel handbook, or I'm looking for some feedback.
So what was the date on the appendix that you have? Because the one that I found had a difference in captain and lieutenant pay.
This one says it was created 8/11/17. Or is that the same one you have, Councilmember Fay? Sorry,
Yes.
that's what Chief McCoy submitted.
I'm sorry, it's the one that Frank supplied me with the most current packet, or excuse me, the most current handbook.
It was the amendment to the employee handbook,
Correct.
or addendum, I'm sorry, not amendment.
Who revised the job description on 12/01/20? I don't
My
recall going to
understanding,
personnel, and I don't recall that coming to council.
I asked that. My understanding is the 12/1/20 is when he made the correction. It refers to the what change was made, Mayor? I forget now. It wasn't the 25% call percentage, it was something else.
My point is that position description was never reviewed with personnel, and it was never reviewed with council. So I don't know what changed in there. I'm not comfortable saying that until we can take a peek at it.
Well, again, I couldn't get a hold of this anywhere in any document, except
there
what was
different
supplied here in the packet.
What does the fire department policy 1201/07 say about pay? We're making reference to it and nobody seems to know. What am I missing?
Exactly where I started the conversation this morning. I can't get a hold of 1201.7.
There isn't
I
a
don't know where it's
1201.7.
published.
That's chapter 12 is Fireleaf and does not have a 1201. Pay is in 15, chapter 15, 1.3.
So there's a typo here?
Yes. Well, at least unless they created a new chapter, it was not in my chapter 12.
You're right. 1200 is fire relief, and it ends at 1200.9 or something like that, right before 1201. So, all right.
But you are correct. The appendix to the personnel is the same. I apologize. I had an older copy in front of me.
Okay. So I don't know what to motion on here. I can't find anything that says Chief McCoy couldn't. He said, well, you're right. It's 2,200 each, and that's he didn't like that. He didn't think they should be paid the same.
Well, we can approve we've changed pay mid-year before, so we can approve the officers and have a discussion about compensation.
Okay.
And we always have the option of retroactive as well.
So you're saying per diem at 2,200 unless the personnel committee makes a change to what the chief is recommending, 1,800?
I would just reference the appendix. So that way, if we update the appendix, their pay will just reflect that.
Okay.
So point of clarification, would it be a motion and second to appoint the 4 persons, respectively captains and lieutenants, and direct the personnel committee to review the, they're not per diem fees, whatever they're called.
Stipends.
Thank you, the stipends.
Stipend and the position description. Let's do a review of that to make sure that we have that right.
Yeah, because I question whether the job duties and the qualifications should be the exact same for both ranks, too.
Especially compensation is going to be different.
Yes, and so I'm okay with approving the officer assignments tonight, but I do think personnel should review those.
Okay. All right. So with that, then I am looking for a motion to approve Captains Jay McCoy and Ed McGinty and Lieutenants Jake Marn and Zach Christensen.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember DeLuca.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Cahill. Any further discussion regarding these line officer selection? I just have one question, Frank. Was there opportunity for the firefighters themselves to give feedback anywhere along in the process?
I failed to mention that. Yes, there was. And as I recall, there was one fellow who offered feedback on 3 different people, but
Okay.
The feedback was not widespread.
Okay, sounds good, just as long as it was asked. All right, so with that, then there's a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the 4 line officers as submitted by a show of hands? All right, I see 5 hands, opposed, show of hands. All right, the line officers are approved, 5-0.
Just as a follow-up on that, I have pieces of the standard operating guidelines, but could we get a complete copy of the fire department SOGs?
Is that?
Yes, we will try to.
Thank you.
All right.
Does the council want to memorialize any direction to the personnel committee, or is that just understood?
I think it was pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll move on to council reports and other business. We will start with Councilmember DeLong, followed by Councilmember Fay.
Lot of meetings. Lot of meetings. Nothing else. We have police commission in the morning as well.
Councilmember Fay, followed by Councilmember Cahill.
Well, like all of you, last week was very busy with the entire interviewing schedule and deliberation. It was exhaustive, but I'm excited. I think we reached a unanimous, fantastic decision. So I hope the city moves forward gracefully. I had my first fire commission meeting of the year this afternoon. I have been elected chair. I offered it to the mayor. They turned me down. I continue to attend Orono Rotary, and just this week submitted the district grant progress report. So one more cog in this wheel that has been completed. We'll be looking for a grand opening and or a Memorial Day event at the end of May next year. And believe it or not, we kicked off our first Party in the Park meeting of the year. Kind of a exploratory type event, but attended by about 6 of us. And we're looking at potentially anywhere the 5th to the 12th of June, depending on conflicts with Memorial Day and high school graduations and things of that nature. So nothing cast in stone, but that's been my January.
Well, I might come back to Fire Commission as an audience member now that I know who's chairing. So earlier this month, I attended the chamber along with the mayor, where we had a presentation from MnDOT about the Highway 12 safety improvements that are essentially going to route all traffic around the city. So obviously businesses have already had a hard year with 2020, and so this is really going to affect them as well in 2021. So I think as a council, we should definitely do whatever we can to support getting people back into the city this summer to make sure to support our businesses. And I also attended my first fire relief meeting, and with Chief McCoy becoming the fire chief, he resigned as president, and they'll be doing their new president at their annual meeting in March. I also attended planning, where we discussed the storage CUP we discussed tonight, and personnel met about some policies just to kind of clean up the book and make sure it follows along with the decisions we're making.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Cahill. Councilmember DeLuca.
And I too spent last week in a joyful week interviewing for our city administrator, and I think the city will be pleased with our selection. Spent some time with Caitlin and Frank on the personnel. You saw some of that tonight under the staff increases. Frank will be doing performance reviews on the 2 staff. And we will continue doing some review on some fundraising policies and a couple of other things cleaning up, and the new assignment from tonight. I also had an opportunity to just listen in on the chamber's events earlier this month as a citizen. And it was very impressive, the first chamber meeting that I've had an opportunity to do. And I think if any of you do get an opportunity, we have some very, very nice businesses and a wonderful collaboration, the way they work together. It was very inspiring, and there was a very nice report on the Highway 12 project that was given there. Progress is being made, and Gary, thank you for your leadership on all of the stuff to keep Highway 12 safe.
Thank you, Councilmember DeLuca. As everyone has already stated, it has been a very busy January. In addition to attending many of the meetings with all of you, I also was able to attend the Northwest Hennepin League of Municipalities and the Regional Council of Mayors. Looking forward to possibly having a special meeting Thursday evening and approving and welcoming our new city administrator to Maple Plain, and working on that relationship and partnership. So it's very exciting times. And I think that's all I have at this time. Anybody else have council reports or other business? And just if residents are listening, the Highway 12 presentation, there'll be an open house, and that will be all available. You can find links to it as well on MnDOT, correct? Yeah. there's so many different projects with different lengths. It's hard to keep them all straight, but that there will be plenty of communication. So that is our commitment to the chamber and to all of our residents and the business owners, that we will do our part to communicate and make this as painless as possible.
And Mayor, I know the time is late, but I also think it's worthy to spend a quick moment here and thank our staff and our consultants that have done their reports tonight. And I also kudos to Frank. He puts in a lot of hours and a lot of sweat and tears. And frankly now, Frank, the work begins with the transition that you'll need to do with our new administrator. But we couldn't have gotten where we have been in the last few months without you. And I think a kudos call out is in order for Frank.
Well, I'm not letting him leave yet, so that's why I didn't do it. So this is a pre-kudos. Goodbye. But thank you to all of you, and just loved having the live reports, and it was good to see everyone. I do look forward to the day when we can be together in person again safely and go enjoy dinner afterwards when it's safe again.
Watch out, she'll hug you all.
Any other reports or other business? All right, who wants to make it? Motion by DeLuca to adjourn. Second by DeLong. All in favor? All right, the meeting's adjourned at 9:33.
Good night,
Good morning,
everybody.
Gary.
Thanks. Have a good day.
See you at 8.
Thank you.
See
See you at 8 in the morning.
Don't have to buy donuts since we're virtual.
Doesn't mean I'm not gonna have any.
Hey, then you better get one for all of us. I'll meet you in the garage.
Yes, send one over. Send one over.
Mark, we'll get you a banana.
Thanks.
Protein shake.
I appreciate that.
All right, see you all later.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.